I still remember the day like it was yesterday. A crisp autumn afternoon, the kind where the sun hangs low in the sky, casting golden light over everything. The air smelled of fallen leaves and chimney smoke, a reminder that winter was just around the corner. I had just finished brewing a cup of tea when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lisa, my best friend since college. "Lisa, hey, can you do me a huge favor?" I smiled. Lisa was the type to jump straight to the point. "Me? Depends. What kind of favor?" Her reply came quickly. "Lisa, it's about Jake. He's in a bit of a situation. I'm out of town for the weekend, and I don't know who else to ask." Jake. Her son. The boy I'd known since he was born. Well, not really a boy anymore. He had just turned 19. The last time I saw him was at his birthday dinner a few months ago. He had grown into a tall, broad-shouldered young man, his once boyish face now sharper, more defined. He had his mother's deep brown eyes and an easy smile that could charm anyone. "Me? What kind of situation?" Lisa hesitated before responding. "Lisa, he got into a little trouble with his car. Nothing major, but he's stuck and doesn't know what to do. Can you check on him?" I sighed, already reaching for my coat. I had been looking forward to a quiet evening with a book, but Lisa and I had been through too much for me to say no. "Me? Of course. Where is he?" She sent me a location pin. It wasn't far, just outside of town on a quiet road near the old train tracks. I grabbed my keys and headed out. When I arrived, Jake was leaning against his car, arms crossed, his face a mix of frustration and relief. His silver sedan sat at an awkward angle on the side of the road, one tire completely flat. His hair, slightly tousled, caught the last rays of sunlight. He straightened when he saw me. "Oh, thank God. I thought I'd be up here all night." I stepped out of my car and glanced at his tire. "Lisa said you got into some trouble, but she didn't mention a flat tire." Jake rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, I might have misjudged a turn and hit a curb. Hard." He sighed. "I was going to call a tow truck, but Mom said you might be able to help." I folded my arms. "And you don't have a spare?" He gave me a sheepish look. "I do. I've never changed a tire before." I laughed softly. "Well, that's something every man should know how to do. Come on, I'll show you." We got to work, and I walked him through each step, loosening the lug nuts, jacking up the car, carefully removing the flat. He listened attentively, his brow furrowed in concentration. At one point, he looked up at me and grinned. "You're really good at this. You do this often." "Let's just say I've had my fair share of car troubles over the years," I said. "You learn when you don't have someone to call." His expression softened. "Yeah, I guess I've always had Mom to rely on." There was something in his voice, something deeper than just casual conversation. I glanced at him. "Everything okay?" He hesitated. Then, after a moment, he said, "I don't know. I just feel stuck lately. Like I should be figuring things out, but I don't know where to start. Everyone keeps saying you're an adult now, but I don't feel like one." I set the spare tire in place and handed him the lug wrench. "Tighten these. And trust me, no one really knows what they're doing at 19. You're figuring it out as you go." He looked up at me, his expression unreadable. "What about you? When did you figure it all out?" I chuckled. "Still working on it." That made him smile. He finished securing the tire, and I checked his work before nodding in approval. "Good job. Now let's get you back on the road." As he packed up the tools, he glanced at me again. "Would you mind if I hung out at your place for a bit? I kind of don't feel like going home yet." There was something in his voice, a quiet vulnerability. I hesitated only for a second before nodding. "Of course. Let's go." And that's how it all started. How one simple favor turned into something I never could have predicted. Something that would change everything. We arrived at my house just as the sky deepened into twilight. The air had cooled, and a soft breeze rustled the trees that lined my quiet street. I parked in my usual spot, and Jake pulled in behind me, turning off his engine with a sigh. He sat there for a moment, his hands gripping the steering wheel, before finally stepping out. "You okay?" I asked, locking my car. "Yeah," he said quickly, though his voice lacked conviction. "Just thinking." I didn't press him. I knew that feeling all too well, the weight of thoughts that weren't easy to share. Instead, I led him inside, flipping on the lights as we entered the warm familiarity of my home. The scent of cinnamon lingered in the air from a candle I had burned earlier, and the soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound filling the silence. "Make yourself comfortable," I said, slipping off my coat. "You hungry?" Jake hesitated, then nodded. "A little, yeah." I moved to the kitchen, opening the fridge. "I have some leftover pasta, or I can make something quick." "Pasta sounds great." As I heated up the food, I stole a glance at him. He had settled onto one of the stools by the counter, his broad shoulders hunched slightly, his fingers tracing the edge of the wooden surface. Something was definitely on his mind. I decided to ease into it. "So, tell me what's going on. Why didn't you want to go home?" He exhaled, rubbing his temples. "It's just, things at home don't feel the same. Mom's always busy, which I get. But ever since I graduated high school, it's like I don't fit anywhere anymore. I tried college, but I hated it. Tried working, but nothing feels right." I nodded, placing the warmed-up pasta in front of him. "That's normal, Jake. The world makes it seem like you're supposed to have everything figured out by the time you're 18, but that's not how it works." He picked up his fork, twirling the pasta absent-mindedly. "I know, but I feel like I'm just wasting time. Everyone else my age is moving forward, and I'm just stuck." I sat across from him, watching as he took a bite. "You're not stuck. You're just in between things. And that's okay." His gaze met mine, searching. "How did you figure out what you wanted?" I let out a small laugh. "You're assuming I ever did." I leaned back, shaking my head. "Life isn't a straight path. I've tried things, failed at things, started over more times than I can count. At 52, I'm still learning, still figuring things out." Something in my words seemed to strike him. He put his fork down, leaning forward slightly. "It's weird, talking to you like this. I mean, I've known you my whole life, but I never really knew you." I tilted my head, curious. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then said, "I always saw you as just Mom's best friend. But tonight, I don't know. You don't talk down to me. You listen. It's different." There was an honesty in his voice that caught me off guard. I held his gaze for a moment, then offered a small smile. "Well, you're not a kid anymore, Jake. You deserve to be heard." He looked at me like he wanted to say something else, but instead, he just nodded and went back to eating. After dinner, we moved to the living room. I curled up on one end of the couch, and he sat on the other, stretching his long legs out. The conversation drifted to lighter things, movies, music, old memories. It felt natural, easy. At some point, the clock chimed, and I glanced at it, surprised to see how late it had gotten. "You should probably get going," I said, though a part of me didn't want to end the evening just yet. Jake sighed, rubbing his hands together. "Yeah, I guess." He didn't move. I watched him for a moment before saying gently, "You can stay if you want. Just the couch, of course." His lips twitched into a small smirk. "Of course." I got up to grab him a blanket, and when I returned, he was still watching me, his expression unreadable. I handed him the blanket, and for a moment our fingers brushed. "Thanks," he said, his voice softer now. "Get some rest," I said, forcing a smile. "Tomorrow's a new day." As I headed to my room, I couldn't shake the strange feeling in my chest. Something had shifted tonight, something I hadn't expected. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. I didn't sleep much that night. I tossed and turned, my mind replaying the conversation with Jake over and over. His words, his expression, the way he looked at me, not as his mother's best friend, but as a person, someone who truly saw him. I told myself I was overthinking it, that he was just lost, looking for guidance, and I happened to be there at the right moment. But even as I tried to convince myself, I couldn't ignore the way my heart had reacted to him. By the time the sun peeked through my curtains, I had barely gotten a few hours of rest. I got up, wrapped myself in my robe, and padded to the kitchen. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the fridge. I expected Jake to still be asleep, but when I turned the corner, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, sipping a cup of coffee. "Morning," he said, his voice still rough with sleep. I blinked in surprise. "You drink coffee?" He smirked. "I do now. Hope you don't mind. I helped myself." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Not at all." I grabbed a mug and poured myself some, taking a slow sip. The warmth spread through me, waking me up. "Did you sleep okay?" Jake shrugged. "Better than I expected. Your couch is pretty comfortable." I leaned against the counter, studying him. He looked different this morning, more settled, but still deep in thought. "You heading home soon?" I asked carefully. He hesitated, running a hand through his messy hair. "I don't know. I kinda don't want to." I raised an eyebrow. "Jake." "I know," he said quickly. Last night was the first time in a long time I felt like I could actually talk to someone. Like really talk. And I don't want to go back to pretending everything's fine." His words hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. I understood that feeling all too well, the fear of returning to a life that felt hollow. I sat across from him, wrapping my hands around my mug. "So what do you want to do?" He exhaled, glancing out the window. "I don't know, but I think I need to figure it out somewhere that isn't home." A thought crossed my mind before I could stop it. "You could stay here, just for a little while, if you need time to think." His eyes snapped back to mine, searching. "You'd be okay with that?" I hesitated. Would I? Having him here, under my roof, sharing my space, it felt like opening a door to something I wasn't sure I was ready for. And yet, I couldn't ignore the pull inside me. "Yeah," I said finally. "I would." A slow smile spread across his face. "Thank you," he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. That was the moment everything changed. The days stretched into a quiet rhythm. Jake settled into my home like he had always belonged there. In the mornings, we drank coffee together, sometimes in comfortable silence, sometimes in deep conversation. He helped around the house, fixing things I had long since given up on, tightening loose cabinet handles, unclogging the stubborn bathroom drain, even rearranging a shelf in my pantry when he noticed I could barely reach the top. At night, we watched old movies on the couch, and I learned things about him I never knew. He hated horror movies but loved psychological thrillers. He had a habit of drumming his fingers against his knee when he was thinking. He carried more weight on his shoulders than he ever let on. It was strange, this unexpected closeness, and yet it felt natural. But there was something else beneath the surface, something neither of us spoke about. A quiet tension that hummed in the space between us, in the lingering glances, in the way our conversations sometimes stretched into hushed whispers in the dim glow of the living room lamp.